One memory I have was my mum leaving me at the hair salon, giving a woman clear instructions. I want you to trim her hair. And the woman asked, how much should I cut off? My mum showed her just a small amount, like
about
half an inch
or half
of
an
something.
inch, yeah.
When my mum came back, I had been sitting in that seat, silent because children are supposed to
Be seen, and
not heard.
Yep.
While I watched these women cut off 6 inches of my hair.
Oh.
Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Rigor and flow.
Welcome back to another episode of Rigour and Flow with me, Aiwan.
And me, Tamanda.
This is the show where
Business meets love and
culture meets critique.
Yeah.
So, one of my favourite quotes about Black women's hair comes from Solange Knowles.
Oh, Queen Solange.
Queen Solange.
Yeah.
Who released the iconic and seminal track,
Don't touch my hair. Is
that one in 2016, which is a really important time for me in so many ways.
Yeah. That song was an anthem. That album was I feel like I was just repeat. And it was a time, wasn't it?
It really was. It was like cranes in the sky.
Oh, God, yeah.
There was so many. That song really captured a moment, I think, for a certain kind of Black person.
Yeah.
You know,
Black women specifically, I think.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think so. But I think Black women also who were more alternative, I'd say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I for me, it was like a Black queer anthem somehow.
Yes, it was. I definitely feel that.
Can you believe it's been 10 years now?
I absolutely can't.
I feel like it was yesterday. I feel like I can still remember singing that song walking around during summer in London.
Yes, exactly. So I remember when she released it.
Yeah.
It was the year of the first ever Afro Punk festival in Paris.
Okay.
So it was their inaugural one.
Yeah.
Now, Afro Punk is a festival for those Black people who are more alternative.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
Know,
it's like on the fringes, on the
Yes.
edges, the kind of cool kids, but also kind of the outcasts at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like sort of Black people into like rock music, into certain styles of dress, like can be quite quirky, quite nerdy, into games, whatever it is. And this is the festival that brought all of us together.
Yeah.
And so in that 2016, I went out there to shoot my feature documentary, Wax Print.
Yeah.
And it was the first shoot of that entire film,
Yeah.
which then went on to take 2 years to complete. But I remember being immersed into this world that I'd never known about before. I'd heard of Afropunk. I knew about its history, but I'd never been to one. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I'm in this world with all of these Black people, these Black kids who are like me. And I was like, well, where were you when I was growing up?
Yep.
Because there was like rock music playing, there was, you know, all kinds of alternative styles. People were dressed like goths and emos, but also people were dressed kind of in that nerdy comic. Yeah. You imagine like maybe Comic-Con, but without necessarily the characters, but certainly the aesthetic of like a Comic-Con, or people that are into like graphic novels and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Well, and also like the hair and the fabrics, because I remember watching your footage.
That's why I went.
From Wax Print. Yeah. And I remember being struck because, first of all, I knew somebody in the footage, which is Mumbi and Condi.
Yeah.
And I remember that they were in it and they had short-ish black afro. Yes. And then just these quirky things. And then you were going around, if I remember correctly, like interviewing people wearing Wax Print and stuff.
In
so it was
different styles. So it was like different to the styles that you normally see people wear, this, you know, quite iconic textile that's become associated with Africa. And they were doing it differently. They were reinterpreting the aesthetic of Wax Print, which is why I wanted to go there and then to ask these questions. And obviously Solange was the queen of the moment.
Was she performing?
She wasn't performing, which was so sad. She actually ended up, she was supposed to perform at the one in South Africa. I think something happened.
And then that got cancelled. I remember, because it was
hit
up
the
roof.
Like
all my people back home were like, Solange is not coming. Our queen is abandoning us.
And people felt scammed.
They did.
But no, she wasn't there. But I think her energy was there. Yeah. And I think that album for me was one of the albums of that period. Yeah. So for me, she was the queen of Afropunk. And that song in particular, I think captured the essence of Black hair in that moment.
It did.
And one of my favorite lyrics from that track is, "Don't touch my pride. They say the glory's all mine. Don't test my mouth. They say the truth is my sound." And something about those lyrics for me that just captured Black women in that moment being unapologetic.
Yeah.
Unapologetic in their hair and being able to stand up for themselves and say, actually, don't touch my hair.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
You're invading my personal space.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use my mouth to tell the truth about the fuckery that you lot have been doing. And I loved it because it just captured that energy in that moment and empowered us.
It was a defiance that we could all relate to and we were given permission to have.
Yes.
And it was like, we may have felt like there were things wrong about how people respond to our hair, but we didn't really have permission to collectively be like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah. These are the new rules.
Yeah.
Guys, these are the new rules. Don't touch it.
Yeah. It's true.
She gave us the new rules.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, but talking about hair, right? I'm curious about this as you sit there with your pineapple dreads. I feel like hair is such a big deal for us as Black women. And that's why we related to that moment so much. And I'm kind of curious about your hair story because since we've been together, I've watched you go from short hair to these like incredible dreads, which I love.
Yes, it took some getting there.
It did, and I know that. So I'm curious. I want to know, like, going back long before these dreads existed, like, what was your hair story?
So I feel like every time I tell one of my stories, I always have to go back to that church.
It's always a church. There's always God involved and Pentecostal churches.
What can I say? It defines so much of my early life. Like I'd say the first 20 years of my life was really defined to a huge extent by the church.
Yeah.
As I've said in other episodes, I was raised in a very stringent, strong form of Pentecostal Christianity. I refer to it as a fundamentalist kind of Christianity. And the particular denomination that I was in, or the particular church I was in, had very strong rules about women's hair.
Oh, okay.
So their rules were that you are to be modest with your hair.
Yeah.
You must not adorn your hair with anything beyond what is natural to your hair. So no beads.
Beads even?
No beads, absolutely not.
Wow.
I think beads were even seen as maybe a little bit demonic.
That's so interesting because in the background I grew up, beads were one of the things that signified natural hair.
Yes.
In a way, you know, it was...
Because they were wooden.
Yeah.
Which is a natural material.
Yeah. You know, you're in touch with the earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, you know, back in the day, you had those gold things that you would maybe put around plaits, like a little...
Oh, yeah. I still have some of them.
Yeah, exactly. I remember actually when you had braids.
Yeah.
Those weren't allowed. You couldn't relax your hair, which is a form of chemically straightening your hair. You couldn't perm your hair. You couldn't do it. You couldn't even have extensions, like, you know, braids, extensions, or a weave or anything like that, just your natural hair. And it even went a step further, which is that women had to cover their hair.
Yeah. I mean, that is quite common in a lot of, particularly more religious faiths, like strict ones.
Yeah.
I know that there's people who do it by choice, obviously, but yeah.
Your hair really was not to be celebrated in any way because that would be seen to be prideful and immodest. And so that's the message that I got growing up.
So in that household or that environment, obviously dreads are natural. So would you have been able to have them?
Absolutely. On what earth? Not on God's green earth. No way.
What, not modest enough or?
No, it's demonic. Okay. It's the hair of people who are not doing well in life.
Okay, so you've been on a journey.
I've been on a journey.
Okay.
Dreads were not acceptable.
Okay, so it had to be natural, covered afro.
Yeah, so what you could have is plaits.
Okay.
Plaiting like your own hair.
Cane row, own hair only.
Yeah, cane row, single plaits, you could have that. That was okay. You could have like your own, if you were going to have an afro, not the big one.
Yeah.
That's too much. No, that's a small
not
one.
Not a showy one.
Not a showy one, a small one. Okay. That's the one that's allowed.
The teeny weeny afro.
Teeny weeny afro. And the thing with me is I had a lot of hair. Yeah, so therefore I couldn't do the small afro. Okay. The other thing you could have that my mum used to do is African hairstyle that we called tread. It's not tread, it's just that the accent turns TH into T.
Oh, thread.
So
Okay.
thread.
Yeah,
you know.
okay, yeah.
So my mum would, tread my hair with the, it's like this, it's like a, what do you call it?
Is it wool?
It's not really wool, but people do refer to it as wool. But it's like a very strong thread.
Black.
It's black.
Okay,
and it came on these little classic. Hopefully, I'll put a picture on in the show notes and on screen. But it came in this really quite iconic packaging. And your mum would take your hair in sections, and she would literally.
Is it like little squares?
Squares.
All over your
Although
head,
my
and then
mum wouldn't do squares, and it really used to irritate me because my friends had squares and that was the fashionable thing. I was like, I'm already unfashionable as it is because I can't do, at the very least, can you at least part my hair into squares? And my mum will be like, is your head square? Your head is not square. So how can I be doing squares? And me and my mum would battle and she would never do squares. She did these curved things. So I ended up looking like those... like a painting. You know those, where it's just like that.
What do you mean like that?
It's like clamshells next to each other. So your
I
head just
have
looks
no
like
idea what you're talking
clamshells.
about.
I'm going to
I don't know how people
it.
will be able to picture that in
I
their
will
head.
design it. It was like a series of clamshell partings on my head.
Oh, I can imagine. So almost like Art Deco has these
Art
kind
Deco.
of like semicircular kind of patterns.
Yeah. So not only was I unfashionable,
Oh
but
my
I had
gosh.
Art Deco head.
I know that hairstyle because in the village in Botswana, so like my aunt would do that hairstyle, like,
Yes.
and she would do it on me sometimes, and I've never seen it in anything other than a square. So I can't even imagine. Do you have any pictures?
I might be able to find one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to see that.
But it was terrible because then you had these things just sticking out of your head. It's
They're like
already
antennae, aren't they?
God, it's just really quite traumatic. So you've got these antennae sticking out of your head, and then of course it's already really tight because it's a tight hairstyle.
Yeah.
My mum made sure to do it tight so it would last long.
Yeah.
She don't want to be faffing around with my hair.
Yeah.
And then she, at the end of doing it, she'd then start to bend it into shape. It was like a form of torture, if I'm being honest. So
that's
then now you go to school and you're like that because your neck is tight 'cause
sticking
your
out.
head is like peppering and just hot from the tread. And then you've got all of these stuck in antennae sticking out of your head. It was chaotic. But those are my early experiences with black hair. Painful, traumatic, and a source of contention between me and my mum.
Oh, yep. Relatable. Okay, so tell me, like, so you're basically rocking up to school with looking like a giant bug,
looking
antennae.
like an AM radio.
like AM radio.
FM radio. Those cars, on the old school cars, that thing that just sticks out, the radio antenna on the top. That was me. Except I had many antennae. I had good reception.
There was no pirate station
there.
there.
Was no pirate. You're going to lock in.
You're picking up all the frequencies.
All the frequencies. That's probably why I became a sound engineer.
Does this explain why you have such golden ears
Listen,
as a sound engineer?
I heard everything.
You heard everything. The antennae were strong. Okay. So you're rocking up like a giant multiple antennae.
Yes.
What were your peers doing with their hair at the time?
Oh, they were just gorgeous. The black girls, they had all the latest styles of all the famous pop stars and film stars of the day, the black ones.
Yeah.
That some of the girls had perms, curly perms. Some of them had relaxed hair.
Okay.
Some of them had beautiful, like, clips and barrettes and you remember the one that was like a tortoiseshell barrette that was circular and it had a comb in it.
Oh,
it's like
I
a
know
clip.
those things. It's like a clip and it's
a clip
tortoiseshell.
and you'd pull your hair back and then you'd clip it with that.
Yeah.
They
Could
had.
they get their hair in that? I would
Some
never
of
have been able to get
some
my
of
hair in
them.
that.
Yeah, some of them could because some of them had thin hair because just over perming.
Oh, they were
Do you know what I mean?
relaxer.
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
And then they had like beads, nice beads. They just were fashionable. Their mums allowed them to do that. And then you've got me rocking up with my antennae. Trying to be friends. No wonder I got
don't know, the way you said they were beautiful, I'm not sure they knew you were trying to be friends.
I don't think I fancied anyone in primary school.
In primary school?
No, I didn't fancy anyone.
Anyone? Boy,
No.
girl, nothing?
Not in my school.
Okay, but outside of that?
Maybe I had the odd crush. Yeah.
Ooh, me. At church?
Yeah.
We know you had a
that
crush
was slightly
on her.
older, but yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what was going on. You know, they were fashionable and they were allowed to express their identity through their hair. And I wasn't. But it is what it is.
Okay, so you literally never had any kind of curly perm, no relaxer, nothing to straighten your hair or change it?
In my entire life, I have never permed or relaxed my hair. The most I've done is a hot comb during my 20s for a few years. That's it.
And that, like, what was the effect of that on your hair, the hot comb?
It was fine. I think because I didn't do any of those things, I had quite healthy, strong hair. So when I did do the hot comb, is it called a hot comb?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. It was fine. It looked good. I mean, obviously it doesn't last very long because the moment you get it a bit wet, it reverts to type.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
What I found amazing, like, I think it's so not that common to not have had a relaxer or straightener. And the first time I realized that about you was it last year or the year before, when I got my fibroids diagnosis, those tumors on my womb that I had and I had to have removed. And at the time I'd never heard of fibroids. So I was doing this research. And as I started researching more and more, I realized that fibroids have been linked to the use of chemical hair relaxers. And so has cervical cancer, by the way.
So that's definitely a proven link has now been established.
I think there needs to be way more research. But yeah, there's been massive court cases in America, people trying to take to court and trying to sue the creators of relaxers and curly perms because of that. So there was this big controversy about something called no-lie relaxers, or they used to put something called lye in them.
So
it's
lye is
bad
like
for you.
L-Y-E.
Yeah,
Right.
It's not great for you. I can't remember the details if I'm completely honest, but there's been quite a big controversy in America. But many of those relaxers that have been banned in the West are still being used in Africa on the continent.
As always.
We've
We've seen that with milk products and food products.
Yeah.
But gone.
Yeah. And I remember discovering that, like, you didn't have relaxers and your church background at the time being part of that. And I was like, that is kind of wild. Like, this thing that felt so restrictive and oppressive to you, to me, seems like it may have protected you from something that so many Black women are facing as well. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, do you think there were any benefits in hindsight to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to finally find upside to the fundamentalism.
So looking like an antenna.
Yeah. But yeah, it was protective. It was protective, certainly in the physical sense. Socially, it wasn't.
Okay. Say more.
Well, because, then you get bullied and you get mocked. And when you're in school, because you don't fit the status quo, you don't fit the norm. Yeah. But then again, even on that front, I'm kind of grateful because what it gave me was my independence. I had no choice. I couldn't conform. Therefore, I just had to be who I was and just get on with just being my nerdy, quirky self.
And accept yourself.
Absolutely. And immerse myself in the things that I enjoyed doing and playing with the people who would play with me, who were often outcasts as well, So I think I learned to exist on the fringes. And I feel like that still follows through even into my adult years and even in the work that I do, Yeah,
that's so interesting. I think there's also a difference between existing on the fringes and self-love and self-acceptance. Do you think it ever got to self-love or acceptance?
I would say that takes time.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, you are just, why can't I just fit in? It would make my life so much easier if I could just do these other things. And I think it takes some time. What helped is movements like Afro Punk and Solange, which certainly made natural hair the thing. Let's all return to natural hair. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also like politicization, which I've spoken about before.
Yeah.
My heroes were, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers, and they were always championing natural Black hair. I mean, I remember Malcolm X, before he became the Malcolm X, had a perm.
Yes, he did. I mean, he used to be called Red,
he
wasn't
was
he?
called
He had red.
Yeah.
He was called Red because he
His
had
hair
reddish
slightly,
skin and he had reddish hair.
Yeah.
And so his street name, when he was caught up in gangs before he became a Christian, because he became a Christian first,
Yes.
and then a Muslim later.
Yes.
after he became very politically conscious. He was a massive proponent
Absolutely.
of Afro hair and undoing the perms.
Yeah. So obviously the Malcolm X we see today isn't the Malcolm X that he was before when he
Yeah.
was red. So I think a lot of those people really helped me to arrive at a place of self-acceptance and self-love.
So the church maybe didn't get you quite there, but your political activist heroes eventually did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I get that the young part of your life, you were existing on the fringes. You obviously couldn't have dreads like you do now.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get here, and what were the in-between stages?
So I think sexuality helped. When I left the church and came out, it was almost like what I was in terms of everything, aesthetic, hair, beliefs, all of that good stuff, was going through a process of change. And I knew that for me, having the hair that I had at that point felt like hanging on to something, like a type of straightness almost, if that makes sense.
Because it was long and
It was
healthy
long.
Afro.
Yeah, it was. I mean, at those times, I'd just get it plaited. I'd had cane rows a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, this doesn't reflect who I am anymore. As you can probably see, I'm quite mask presenting. And I've always been that way, even from young.
Yeah.
My mum would try and put me in frilly dresses, and I'd come home and the dresses would be torn and dirty because I'd been playing football, running, and my mum would be like, she'd put the dress on, she'd be just look at me like, go and play rough. I know what you're going to do out there.
Yeah.
Because she knew that the dress was going to come back torn.
Yeah.
So that leaving the church, I was like, I need to shed this.
Yeah.
And so I started with a little undercut.
Like a little buzz cut.
No, it was an undercut. So just the back of my head here.
But you still had a big afro.
Still had
hair
my
on
afro,
top? Okay.
absolutely. And I started with that. That was my beginnings. And then by 2019, I was like, I just want it off. And so went to the barber's, Slider Cuts in Hackney. Shout out.
Wow. Okay.
and got it cut completely.
Yeah.
And the response was great, except from my mum.
Okay, but before we get to your mum, who was the great response, other women that you were interested in?
Oh, no. I was in a relationship at the time.
Okay, yeah.
So the response there was good.
Okay.
Friends.
Yeah.
I remember went out for a thing and a few people saw me for the first time and I felt a bit nervous and everyone was just like, oh my God, it suits you. Like, it looks really good.
So people could see you were stepping into yourself and that this
I think
reflected
so.
you.
Yeah, it was like a new chapter, And then I'd turn up to my mum's, I walk in, she looks up, she looks down, she looks up. She puts her chin in her hands and she says, I put my life into that hair and it's gone.
Whoa. That's intense.
That's intense.
I've put my life into that hair.
And it's gone.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
What did you say, back?
I said to her, do you know what? Things have to change. That's all I could say in that moment. But I could feel a sadness from her, but also a resignation that I'm an adult and I'm not little Aiwan who's going to sit there with Art Deco on her head.
And did she know, were you out to her at that point? Did she?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so she
I'd been
could
out to her for a few years.
Okay, and so did you think she saw the reflection of your hair as being as much wrapped up in your sexuality?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if she went that far, but there was certainly a sadness there. Mm-hmm. Because, there's a bond between mother and daughter.
Yeah.
Those hair care moments are the bonds between mothers and daughters. And so in those moments, you're sat literally between your mum's knees.
Yeah.
As she does your hair.
Yep.
And you're having interactions, you're having conversations, she's telling you off, you're trying to get something. It's a bonding moment.
Yeah.
And in a way, cutting it off is also a cutting off somehow of that bonding between the two of you, years of bonding between the two of you.
It feels like a severance. It's like it's kind of, what do they call it in Western psychology? Individuating.
Yes.
It's very, very individualistic and European, but it's like a severing of this thing we've shared that has brought us together, your hair.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you feel any, like, beyond your mom, how did you feel?
I felt good. It felt like a relief because suddenly, for the first time, all of the stuff that happens with black hair, the procedures, the time it takes to wash it, to get it ready, to do this, to do all the considerations you have to make every moment of every day were gone. I could just get in the shower.
Yeah.
I could wash it in 2 minutes, put a little bit of product, and away I go.
Yeah. Yeah, oh my God, that was exactly my experience with cutting off my hair as well. Like, I've never felt more liberated than when I had like a teeny weeny afro and just got rid of all the baggage, you know?
See, I have only ever known you with the hair that you have, so I can't even imagine you with a tiny afro. But before we get there, what was the deal before that? What was your story?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, no, going back to growing up, like I can relate to a lot of the stuff you said. Like my memories were sitting between my auntie's legs, having her do my hair with wool or tie up my hair or just like grease my hair with, like, we had Blue Magic. Did you have that?
Oh, I know Blue Magic. We weren't allowed to use that.
Oh, really?
Because it was blue.
Was that demonic?
Yeah, why are you putting blue substance on
To
your
be
hair?
fair, though, it's actually smart. If you think about it, what the hell is a bright blue substance, greasy substance like Vaseline?
My mum was having none of it.
It kind of intuitively, if you really think about it, it doesn't make sense.
It's true.
So maybe her God knows the truth.
Maybe he does. He's a truth-telling God.
He's a truth teller. It was either Blue Magic or it was sulfurate or whatever.
I remember sulfurate.
It was like a yellow tub
grease.
So you get your hair greased because obviously we all know dry hair is not the one.
No.
So I remember mostly being in between my aunt's legs, occasionally my mum's, but it was either me or my aunt did it. And what I remember was, obviously I have this hair, so I have mixed race kind of hair that kind of gets called good hair. And so I remember when I was between the legs, it would be this weird mix of envy. Mm-hmm. Oh, you have this nice, good hair. Pride. Oh, look at our child, because, you know, you're everybody's child and we're proud of this hair. It belongs to all of us. And look at how we're all caring for it. Like you said, there's this bonding. And the other thing I felt was frustration.
I think that pervades all black hair stories.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, I've got to do your good hair all over again. It's also long, which makes it really annoying and hard to handle. And so you both get this message on the one hand that you've got this good, great hair, and on another hand that it's like it's so much trouble and you're so much hard work. And I found my own hair freaking hard work. I'm going to be honest.
So what was hard about your hair? Because I'm not going to lie, the messaging that I received about mixed race people is that they have good hair and that a function of that good hair, why it's good hair, is because it's easy to take care of because it's closer to white people's hair. So I'm very interested about what was difficult about it because I don't know this aspect of mixed race hair.
Yeah, I mean, I do hear what you're saying because what you get told is it's more manageable. Yeah. And I think there is, to be honest, there can be an element of truth to that. It's easier to run a brush through it, maybe. It's easier, or that's what people think. I can see why you say that. On the flip side, for me, it was because there was a lot of it, no matter how manageable it was, it took forever to do. So I just have all these abiding memories of being taken to the hair salon, which I freaking hated. I just hated the experience. And I don't know that it was so much about the hair itself. I think a lot of my frustration was what it did for me around my identity. Mm-hmm. So I'd go to salons with Motswana hair stylists, and they would see me and they would be like, oh, she doesn't speak Setswana. So they thought I didn't speak the language. And I, on the whole, didn't. But I actually understood a lot. And so as a result, they would often be doing my hair and talking about it. And the things that would be said would be both nice, but also some of that envy played out in a way. Right. And I think
And why do you think they were envious?
we have all these hierarchies that we create and these social messaging. Lighter skin is better. Good long hair is better. It's more manageable when you have mixed race hair. So I understand it's racism. It's how racism functions, essentially, that you're told this lighter skinned person has better hair or whatever. So I get it. But for me, what it felt like was being alienated from my own culture. And it wasn't just about the hair. It was about the assumption that I don't understand. I only half belong in this space, you know? And so it wasn't just that there were words said. There were occasions when things happen. Like one memory I have was my mum leaving me at the hair salon, giving a woman clear instructions. I want you to trim her hair. And the woman asked, how much should I cut off? This was all done in Sultana, I could follow. My mum showed her just a small amount, like about half an inch
or half
of
an
something.
Inch, yeah.
Or maybe inch tops. When my mum came back, I had been sitting in that seat, silent because children are supposed to
be seen and not heard. Yep.
While I watched these women cut off 6 inches of my hair.
Oh.
And once it had started, you can't stop it.
You have to follow through.
Because what are you going to do? Walk around with half a haircut?
And what did they say when they were cutting the hair? Did you understand what they were saying as they were cutting the hair?
They were laughing. They were laughing and joking. So they deliberately knew what they were doing. And one of them had said to her, you're going to get in trouble with the woman. And she was laughing. And of course, the thing is, it was spite. Yeah, it was the envy had translated into spite. And of course, the reason they could get away with it without my mum fully understanding was that they were then plaiting my hair after they'd cut it. So I was going back with my hair plaited with extensions, so my mum wouldn't easily seen it. She did actually come back to check in the middle, and she noticed that my hair was shorter, and she asked them, like, what have you done with my child's hair? And then the woman was just like, they acted like completely innocent, like, oh.
And what did your mum say?
My mum was like annoyed, but she couldn't do anything. What can you do? It's done. So she looked annoyed, resigned, frustrated.
Someone did that to my kid's hair. I'm hitting the roof.
Yeah.
It's a violation.
It was a violation.
It's a violation.
It felt like a direct violation.
Yeah.
But the worst part of it was that I had watched them laughing, joking, them thinking I couldn't understand what they were saying when they knew full well what they were doing. And it was a spiteful move. So, yeah, I would say it was a painful experience going to the salon every time, because even when that was the most extreme example, but even on the other visits, it would always be, you're getting your hair braided, you're getting extensions in, same as you, your head is tight, you leave that place, it's throbbing. I see you doing that thing where your neck, you're scared to turn your neck. Yeah, you're like a turtle because it's so tight. And then you get these little bumps at the bottom of where your hair, like the root of your hair, because your hair's pulled so much. I mean, no wonder half of us don't have like hairlines anymore. Because they've been pulled away. Like,
the ever disappearing hairline.
It's just like, you can't do that and expect to come out all right, you know?
No.
It was always that. You couldn't sleep for the next week because your hair was so tight.
Yes.
And turning over in the night wakes you up.
Yes.
It was the worst.
The worst.
Hated it.
Yeah. That is a really harrowing story. I can't imagine sitting there and just watching someone just take off huge chunks of your hair. In that moment, you had no agency.
Yeah.
At all. Did you ever move to a point of having agency over your hair? And if so, like, what was the process of that?
Definitely. I think I made a very active, conscious choice to have agency over my hair later. But even as a child, it didn't take me very long, you know. Okay. My mum was often away working, as I've said before, when I was young. And so there'd be these periods where she wasn't there to take me to the salon, which I loved. Like, I was like free. And in that gap, of course, I had time to be influenced by all sorts of things from my peers. Yeah. But also the big one was music. Like, I was obsessed with music. And we got imported. We had a black BTV. Anyway, we had a black TV station which played black music, and that was like imported 90s music from America. And then you'd have the odd UK act like Eternal.
Yeah.
I know, I loved Eternal.
We're doing an episode on just
Eternal. Yeah.
And one day I'm going to interview Esther Bennett
You
on this
love
very
her.
show.
You absolutely adore her.
She is a queen and a goddess.
Okay. We can get Esther Bennett on,
Yes.
hopefully. But anyway, yeah, I remember just being obsessed with these like incredible Black women who sang amazingly and had these great songs. And I would be transfixed to the screen. And the one person I remember looking at was Toni Braxton. This came a bit later. Do you remember? I mean, I was obsessed with her first albums. In the car jamming, but later on, the time she released "Unbreak My Heart," say you love me again. That's in that particular video, right? She had two hairstyles. One was bone straight, if I
Yes.
remember correctly.
And then wasn't there like a...
Then there was one
curl.
where she wore like almost an evening gown.
Yes.
And she had big curly hair.
Yeah.
It wasn't straight actually.
Okay.
But I was obsessed. And I was
Hold on. Did you just like her style or did you fancy her?
Look at you asking me awkward questions.
She was kind of cute.
I mean, Toni Braxton is
She was hot, actually.
like very
Yeah,
hot.
she was
Like
just hot.
her
And then
songs are sexy.
And then her
she's
voice
sexy.
is just like some
She's hot.
other next level thing.
She's next level. But
I always loved a husky voice, I have to say.
yeah, and she had a deep voice
Yeah,
as well at
she
times,
did.
which you know I love.
Yes. And moving on.
Moving on. Anyway, no, I don't think I fancied her, or if I did, I wasn't aware of fancying her. I think I just wanted to be her. I wanted to be her, but I think a lot of young lesbian crushes are like that. I think the line is difficult.
Yeah, you're
like,
not trying to work it out. Do I want to be her or do I want to have her?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. But I didn't know I was allowed to have her, so I definitely wasn't consciously working that out. But I was like, oh my God, she's stunning. I love her hair. I want hair like that. And so from that moment on, I became obsessed. And one of the things I did was ask my dad consecutively while my mum was away for money to go to the corner shop where we lived to buy like crisps. And I saved that money each and every time because the same corner shop next to our house also had black hairdressers.
Not the ones that cut your hair.
Not the ones, a different one. I'd moved house by this stage. It's quite a while later. And I started saving this small money, 10 pula here, which was like £1, 10 pula there. Because I was like, I'm going to go to that hairdresser and I'm going to get them to make my hair like Toni Braxton. So one day, having saved my 10 pula, I had 100, okay? And I went into the woman and I took a picture of Toni Braxton and then something similar from my mom's magazines because, you know, my mom's magazines were everywhere, right? And I was like, I went in and I was like, first of all, they were like, who is this little kid? I was like, can you make my hair like this? And they said, let me see it. They all gathered round.
As they do. Salon stories.
And everybody looked at this picture. And then the hairdressers looked at each other and they looked around and they saw the hair steamer. And I could see some older women under the hair steamer with these rollers in their hair. And they said, to do that, you need to have a relaxer.
You've got to do it in the accent.
To do that, you need a relaxer. I need relaxer. Yes, you need a relaxer. And then you need a roller. So they all debated this
The technique,
relaxer roller
the
technique
strategy.
that was going to get me to be like Toni Braxton.
Yeah.
And I said, and you know, how much is that? I mean, hair back home is stupidly cheap. Labour is stupid and people don't get paid enough. I can't remember what she said, but essentially it was like 60 pula.
You had enough, basically.
No, I had to go back and save another couple of weeks.
Okay.
And then come back for my thing.
Okay.
And I went in the day so excited because I was going to come out like Toni Braxton. I sat there. They put this chemical relaxer on my hair. I was chilling and then suddenly it started burning like very, very quickly because you put that chemical on your scalp and after a while you feel it, right? And so they kept coming to me, is it itching? Is it itching? No. But when it started itching or burning, it burned like something I'd never felt. Then they washed it out, they put cold water, and I thought, I saw it after they'd taken me from the basin back to the hair seat, and my hair was just limp and straight. Do you know what the worst part of it was? I was so happy. Because as much as it was limp and dripping wet, it looked like the Toni Braxton before she has the curls in that same video. So it looks like it has the potential to be straight. So I was like, yes. Also, my hair was so much lighter.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be Toni Braxton. I didn't care about the pain and the fact that my hair was still burning and I couldn't, it was just light. It was kind of gone. It felt like I had no hair. They did it. They blowed it out. They straightened it. Then they put in these rollers. They put me under the thing. They said, go under this dryer with their rollers. And I went under, waited. 40 minutes is a freaking long time when you're a kid. Mm-hmm. Get out. They put me in the chair and they start taking out the rollers. And when they were done, the Toni Braxton dream faded quicker than you could say Toni Braxton. Like, it was like a massive giant bouffant. I looked like a 90-year-old woman who'd gone and got rollers in her hair. Like, it was nothing like the thing I asked for.
Your heart was actually broken, not unbroken.
My heart was broken and I had to go to school the next day.
Oh, no. What was the response? What were the reviews? 1 star?
I mean, I don't remember the response. What I remember was getting home that afternoon and trying to brush my hair straight as much as possible to undo it. But my scalp by that point was forming scabs.
Yeah, so you can't.
So you were like now brushing your hair tenderly, and then because it's had a roller in, it still has a curl even if you've done that, but now it's under your control. And I remember just trying to scrape it back and put it into a ponytail, which had its own little weird waves in it.
Oh, Lord. You know, it's so funny because I remember my friend Natasha at school.
Yeah.
She was black and she would get a perm.
Yeah.
No, she'd get her hair straightened. And I remember she'd come into school on the Monday with a new relaxed hairstyle. But then throughout the week, she'd just be like picking scabs out of her hair and just like, you know what I mean? And she would be trying to explain, because I didn't understand it. I was like, why are you picking scabs? I don't get it, because I've never been through the relaxing process. And I never seen my mum go through the relaxing process. Yeah. And none of the women that were around me had gone through it. So I don't know that process or what happens afterwards. And then and she'd just be there trying to explain to me, A, what the relaxing was, B, why she had scabs. And then she'd also be looking at me like, are you like an alien? Like, you're a black girl who doesn't know what a relaxer is. Yeah. She'd just be confused by this black girl who didn't know. Yeah. And I just found it, and she had this thing called jam.
Oh, yeah.
You know, jam, thing. It was like this
It's like a gel. Does it lay your edges?
It lays your edges, before, you know, what we now use. I don't know what people use because I've never laid my edges.
It's still jam.
Is it still
jam exists. I found out about it last year.
And she had this tub and it was kind of shaky and it was kind of pink and it just looked so cool. The icons, the branding was so cool. I was like, why can't I use that? Because we just used some dead tub of TCB.
As long as it wasn't blue.
As long as it wasn't blue. Yellow, very good. You know. But yeah, the hair experiences, I think, of black women are just so filled with trauma. That I'm glad that things are starting to change. Like with the research that you're doing, with people like Solange, you know, laying out the fucking mantra.
Yeah, exactly.
the anthem.
And we've needed it because, you know, people think we're just doing it because beauty, but we're trying to survive brutal systems. Like a lot of these processes started because we were slaves. We needed to look more kempt. We needed to look acceptable. Going into a workplace, your mom is okay with, you know, she's teaching you when you're young, let me give you a hairstyle that's okay, that white people will understand, that looks more like their hair.
Yeah, that's professional.
Yeah, and the aesthetic you're being shown everywhere is like trying to mimic this professional aesthetic, or at least this beautiful aesthetic that's very white.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
one of the things I will say is that I'm in the creative space, you're in the research space. There's a freedom, I think, in both spaces to kind of just do whatever it is you want to do with your hair. And it's accepted. In my industry, it's accepted as just, that's your expression, creative expression.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And in yours, it's just more like, I don't know what yours is, but I don't know.
I think there's a lot of people who wouldn't say it's that accepted in academia.
Because I feel like I see more black women academics with like dreads, with natural hair. Whereas when I think about the corporate space, I feel like black women are still going through that oppressive conditioning.
Definitely.
of the way they keep their hair.
Yeah, I think that's true, to be fair, what you're saying. But I think you've got to remember the black women you see in academia, we are a really small number in the first place. There
Yes.
aren't many of us. And the
Yes.
ones that are there
Yeah.
are often quite politically conscious.
Yes.
But I imagine it will also differ in different, like if you go to the business school
Yes.
in the university,
Yeah.
I don't know how many are wearing their hair more natural. I don't know. Is the
I'd
answer. In fact, I
love
can
to
think
see.
of quite a few that I
Yeah.
know in the business school who have been.
Yeah.
So you're probably right. I guess it's maybe more that there just aren't that many of us in academia.
Yeah, that's true, which is a whole problem in and of itself.
We've obviously both been on a journey. How would you say you relate to your hair now?
I would definitely say I have a better relationship with it.
Yeah.
I started growing my dreads 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Literally, it's exactly 2 years ago. And so I think seeing it turn into something that I've always wanted. So I've actually always wanted dreads, even from young, despite the stigma that was attached to dreads. I always loved them. I think because I knew quite a few dreadlocks, a few rusters.
Yeah.
And I liked the way they conducted themselves.
Yeah.
I liked their emphasis on Black unity, because remember, I was bullied by Caribbean kids.
Yeah.
And then, but then you're walking down Brixton High Street or Lewisham, and you're meeting these Rastafarians who are, they're Caribbean, they're Jamaican, and they're coming up to you talking about Black unity, Black pride, and they love the fact that we had natural hair.
Yeah.
And for them, it was like, they were proud of me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you'd have these really good conversations with them. So I really admired them, and I guess maybe I associated that with the hairstyle. I don't know why. And obviously some of my favorite musicians had dreadlocks. So I've always wanted to have dreads. So finally getting to the point where I had overcome some of that conditioning, because there's a lot of conditioning
Definitely.
in our church and in our culture around dreadlocks. I took the plunge about 2 years ago. I have to say, obviously, there was also a trend. Lots of people were doing the dreads thing, so it gave me a bit more confidence.
I have to say they really suit you, your dreads, and it's been like fun watching you go on your lock journey. Like
It was tough.
it was tough.
I nearly cut off at one point.
I was not letting it happen. I'd seen my brother do it, and I was like, I know there's a horrible period you got to get through.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you're gonna enjoy your locks a lot. And they're really lovely.
Yeah.
What were some of the stigmas that were associated with dreads in your community?
So I would say that a big source of it is obviously the religion, which I've mentioned earlier, but also the depiction of hair in Nollywood, which is the Nigerian film industry.
Yeah.
It's actually the second biggest film industry in the world, I might say. So
yeah, definitely.
props to Nigeria.
Yeah.
But Nollywood, basically, there's kind of 4 types of hair. And it goes from when you have your natural hair in cane row or single plaits, you are a good, God-fearing woman.
Okay.
You're on the path of righteousness. You are saved and sanctified.
Yes.
When you are undergoing mental distress, you're losing your mind, or some things are going on wrong in your life, it becomes a very unkempt afro.
Yeah.
That's the symbol of madness, essentially.
Things are starting to descend.
You're backsliding. You're going towards the devil. Then the third one, if you see dreadlocks, that person is smoking ganja. That person is maybe a rock and roll musician. That person is they're not even on the path to backslide. They're off the path.
They have fully backslidden.
They never even got there in the first place. That person is not doing so well. So that's dreadlocks. Or, you're affiliated with some gangs and some underground things there. Cults. You're part of the cults. And then the final one, if you see a woman with weave, relaxed hair, beautifully coiffed, that woman is one of 2 things. She's a full-blown Jezebel or a witch, that one. Or she is a very high-level professional, high-flying mover and shaker, adjacent to the Westerners.
And God-fearing, of course, surely. Or no,
No,
or relaxed is not.
relaxed
So
is not
this
good.
is like, it's the okay.
Yes.
I know I see what you mean.
Yes, because I used to watch Nollywood films by Mike Bamiloye. They are one of the big Christian production houses, film production
so they were
houses.
explicitly Christian as well.
Explicitly Christian, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And they released a series back in the 90s called the Ultimate Power Series. I actually ended up writing a song about it, and that got released and did some things out there in the world.
Yeah.
It was actually my first ever record that came out. That series, first and foremost, it scared the shit out of me. You needed your parents to accompany you to go and wee. It was just that kind of series. But in it, you see the taxonomy of Nollywood hair.
You just did give us the taxonomy of Nollywood hair. You know
Nollywood
that,
hair.
right?
Absolutely.
Like, you've given us the good research framework. If anybody wants to study Nollywood hair, take this as your starting point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You will understand a lot about Black women's hair. So you're kind of breaking up with a deep conditioning around dreads particularly. And obviously I don't want to be a full-blown Jezebel or a witch, and I don't want to be a drug-addicted person. So it took some time for me to make peace. And now I've got my dreads. I'm a functioning citizen. What was that look? What was that look? I'm a pillar of the community.
You are a pillar of the community. You are also my Jezebel and my witch, and I'm here for it.
To be fair, the gayness. That's probably what they think. You've got dreads and became gay. You entered dreads. You put dreads and became gay.
She was lost.
So that's enough about me and my dreadlock journey. How about you? Where are you at with hair?
I would say I'm in a very liberated place with hair. I mean, after my Toni Braxton era, there were like many more years of trauma. I left home. There were no black hairdressers around. It was like super white. And it was like a mess, constantly managing my hair. And I think I got to about my 20s and then found like natural hair community started just at the beginning, like not how it is now, but people started to post about black hair online. And at that point, there was something that kicked in with me intuitively. Like I had been relaxing my hair for years. It was expensive. I couldn't easily afford it. I had scabs on my hair all the time. It was painful and it was annoying. And I was like, I cannot keep doing this. So I started following these blogs. I started keeping one of my own, and I eventually just chopped off my hair and grew it out. I'm not going to lie. It was a big freaking journey figuring out what should I use? What does my hair like? How much am I willing to spend on it? But as you see now, it went from being like super short to the giant afro that it is, curly fro that it is. And I think I've never been happier in that regard. Like it's mine and nobody gets to tell me what to do with it.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lie. People think they can tell me what to do with it. Like when I first cut it off at work, there was so much drama. I mean, you know what black women face in the workplace. People, like you've said, corporate spaces. I was working in a retail at the time. I got laughed out of the kitchen in the office I worked at.
What?
The first day I came in after chopping my hair. Yeah.
Just like that to your face.
Yeah, and I mean it's a bit of a long story, but even the boss in that workplace made monkey gestures at me across the office shortly after, brought in his kid. It's a bit of a longer story, but and the worst thing about it was I had spent weeks preparing my colleagues by saying I'm chopping my hair off, and they'd seen me in this in-between stage where I was growing out the relaxer and braiding my hair, and it still produced that result. And this happens all the time. Like I truly believe that I experienced more racism when I wore my hair more natural, because I was coming closer and closer to a black aesthetic.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'd been straightening it at work, it was like, oh, we get this.
Yes.
So I really get why people straighten their hair. I get why people wear their weave. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of those people that's gone natural and then sits there shaming people who haven't, or thinks you should now become part of the natural hair police and brigade. Like we're surviving certain systems, and we do what we need to survive them.
Absolutely.
And we have aesthetics that we prefer. I wish we didn't have to give black women extensions and weaves made with chemicals that make us sick,
because that's another thing.
That's
isn't
the
it?
problem.
Yeah.
But I also get that we should have choice.
Yeah.
About how we wear our hair. We just need healthy choice.
Yeah. It's so interesting because it's almost like the pursuit of whiteness has caused black people no end of trauma and grief across all facets of our lives.
Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more. On this subject, though, of going natural, there are some of us that want to do it, right? So do you think that it's easier for some black women to go natural than others?
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me, like, what's your theory on that?
100%. I think when you are queer or you have a sexuality that's not heterosexual, as a woman, there's almost like almost expected and accepted thing that you are going to do things with your hair that pertain more to natural things anyway. I feel like dreads are definitely part of the Black queer aesthetic.
Yeah.
I think afros are definitely a part of it. Cutting your hair off completely, especially if you're more mass presenting, you're more of a dyke. So then it's easy because it's part of the aesthetic anyway. You're just kind of doing the thing that looks good and is desired, if that makes sense.
By people within our community.
Absolutely.
World at large, to be clear.
Within that community. And I think, yeah. And then I would say if you have a certain kind of texture as well, it's easier.
Definitely.
You know, because while I have obviously black hair, the texture of my hair is actually a little bit, what's the word?
Your hair's very soft.
It's quite soft.
Yeah, it's very, like, when I have, like, greased your hair or played with your hair versus my mum's,
yes,
it's very, very different.
It's a different texture.
It's very, very soft. Like,
yes.
I think you had long hair for that reason as well, somehow.
Yeah, so if I had been relaxing my hair all these years, I think it might have been a bit easier than people who have, like, a kinkier, tighter pattern to their hair.
Yep.
Because I've heard that can be quite difficult. I know one of my friends just ended up, like, dreadlocks and done. Do you know what I mean? Because she was just like, I'm not faffing around with this, but I also am not going to do the relaxer thing either.
Yeah. I do think there is still this hierarchy with hair where people, as much as we're trying to dismantle it, people still think, oh, if you've got that nice mixed race hair or if it's still long and natural, the rewards are greater socially.
Yeah. Do you remember that whole trend of black women pulling their hair down to see there was
the
a
length,
word they
the hair
used.
length.
Yeah,
check,
but there was
length check.
No, there was I can't remember there was a phrase, a popular phrase, but yeah, they would check the length of their hair and be like, oh yeah, it's down to my shoulders, and they'd actually pull
it down.
It down. And yeah, I don't know how I felt I don't know that I felt very good that was the marker of you having done a good natural hair journey.
Yeah, and that you've done a good job with it, or that somehow, but I mean, again, it's still the same.
Yes. Like aspiration to whiteness.
Yeah, like the same hierarchies are in operation, right? So yeah, I do think it's definitely easier for some people to go natural. And I think there's another level to this, which is that there's a class dimension to it, right? To go natural, for me, cost a lot of money because you have to find new products, you have to try them, a lot of them don't work. That's expensive. That's
Hugely.
a really expensive thing. And
that's one thing I'll say that the church saved us from.
Yeah.
Never went to the salon. Ever. Never paid a penny.
You did it all at home?
Always at home.
Yeah.
Almost like the Amish.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's an element of that which you're not spending money on this aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully people are doing the things they need more, right? Like, but I mean, hair is important and it's one of the things I spend money on, but that's a privilege to be able to spend it.
And you want to do it.
Yeah.
It's something that, it's part of your self-care.
Yeah, and I couldn't do that when I first left school. And that's why it was so frustrating, because to pay to relax it each time, but you pay to go natural.
Yes.
There's some people who magically think you go natural and all you ever have to do is put shea butter or coconut oil. It doesn't work for everyone. And you're lying if you are going to tell people that that's the case. And not everything that has a chemical in it is bad. The truth is we don't know which ones are enough compared to which ones aren't. And this is something I feel really strongly about because I've recently been involved in this community-led research project about hair, which is really about us trying to get more research into what actually is in the products that we're using, which ones are actually helpful and which ones are harmful. And in talking to community members, this was in Reading with an organisation called TRIYBE, the elders in our community, they also have had struggles going natural, not just because money is an issue, but they've been missed because most of us of our generation learnt through social media, through blogs, through all these digital tools that they don't have access to.
So they've digital exclusion.
Yeah, they've missed out on this whole bunch of learning and they feel like at a loss about how to stop relaxing in their hair, at a loss about which products to use. They've been told by their granddaughter or their daughter, use coconut oil. Some of them, their hair is breaking. Mine's exactly the same because you haven't got the detailed information. Like my hair's very, very coarse. If I put just oil, my hair breaks. And those women will just be hearing, just use coconut oil. Like we can all do the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, it's not straightforward for everyone to transition back to natural, as people like to say.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I think for me, we have to acknowledge that this journey isn't smooth for everyone, and there's still so much learning for us to do as a community. What would you say your takeaways are from this conversation?
I'm going to go to the great Marcus Garvey, who said, don't remove the kinks from your hair, remove them from your brain.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks for itself. We have to undo so much of this toxic conditioning on both sides.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's no accident that I too went natural when I got politicized.
There you go.
You remove the kinks and then we come back to ourselves.
Absolutely. Thinking about the audience,
Yeah.
for you guys out there, what conditioning did you receive about black hair? And this is not necessarily a question for just black people.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious about if you're Asian, if you're Chinese,
Maybe you have mixed race kids.
or if you're white, or you've got
mixed race kids.
Yeah, or if you've got mixed
Yeah.
race kids. What is some of the conditioning that you have received around black hair? And I guess the other thing that I'm really curious about, this is kind of centered on the black woman's experience, but I know our black brothers must have hair stories, and I feel like they're not told enough.
Definitely.
So I wonder, like, with black men, what conditioning did you grow up with? What challenges do you have with your hair, if at all? Because I often just think black men, they just kind of cut their hair.
It's
and
not
kinda
straightforward for black men. Again,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's not, and it's also not just your hair on your head. Like, what do you do with your beard products?
Yeah, that's
because
true.
for some of our men, their beards are everything. They're like a crown. They're a mark of so much. It's a
Yes.
grooming practice. It's a self-care practice.
Yeah.
So like,
But it's
what-
also, I also feel like it's demonized a bit.
true.
I think it is. I'm
You wanna know.
making that assertion, but I want to know. So that's to our black brothers out there.
Yeah.
So this has been Rigour and Flow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening or watching. As always, you can get in touch with us at rigourandflow@gmail.com. And the Rigour is RIGOUR because we are from the UK. And tell us what you think, your feedback, your thoughts, any questions, and we will answer those questions in a subsequent episode. All the links to all of the things we've talked about will be in the show description or in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.